What's up, Diablo 4 players? So massive new update and buffs to pretty much every single class in the game, which is a huge surprise that nothing actually got nerfed. So you can be rest assured your favorite build that you built up is still going to be very powerful. Now, this update though, just as a heads up, we have the patch notes that just came out today, but the patch doesn't actually hit until the 17th. So that's when the patch actually comes out, but you guys are going to be loving this update. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through this a little bit fast because there are so many big updates here. So overall, this is going to be benefiting pretty much all the classes here. So we just have the potion buffs over here. So pretty much what it comes down to at this point, most of us are kind of maxed out. The healing is going to be increased by 200% on the endgame potions. So that's cool. And then legendary aspects, the aspect of the protector. This one got a reduction on the cooldown, which actually makes it a lot better. But most people just prefer to get flat damage reduction. So it's still not really that bad of an item to go ahead and actually throw on in the earlier stages. But next up, we have ancestral unique item changes. So this is going to be very interesting. So Andario's Visage actually surprisingly got a buff. So the Poison Nova spawns on the enemy instead of the player. Now, why is this good? Well, you might be able to try to mix in Heartseeker plus being able to run the Andario's Visage. Or if there's any other range builds, you can now make some great use out of it. And on top of that, they actually increase the Poison Nova damage by 50%, which could make this towards like the higher end of the game now. This is going to be actually a pretty big buff. The build was already probably one of the best boss killers in the game for the rogue, and now it's going to be even stronger with this update. And then on top of that, Doombringer, surprisingly, these are the uber uniques. They call them ancestral uniques, but they're the uber uniques here. The Doombringer over here, the shadow explosion damage got increased by 100%, so it might now be a little bit more viable to actually have this in some other lucky hit proc builds. But honestly, Azareth is actually pretty good too if you want to mix that in with the Andario's build. That could be an option as well. And then on top of that, Ring of the Starless Sky is getting a buff over here, and the maximum stacks of resource cost reduction and bonus damage got increased from 4 to 5. So extra resource cost reduction by 10%, and then another 10% of the bonus damage that you're going to be getting. So that's going to be a nice addition. And then the increase of the maximum amount of resource cost reduction and bonus from X40 to 50, because if we're getting more stacks, we need this to increase as well. And then Tyrell's Might, the Divine Barrage damage has actually been increased by 100%. So they're buffing the uber uniques, which is kind of a big surprise considering Tyrell's was actually a pretty solid item for open world content. Now, is this going to make it so you can throw it on every build and just delete content? It's a little bit difficult to scale it, kind of like Andario's. It's very niche. You have to kind of build into it, but the fact that it can work now and it's going to be a little bit even stronger, it's going to be a nice addition. And then on top of that, this is going to be for all classes too. The stat requirements for non-main stats got reduced from 90 to 60 per Paragon board. So what this means is you may actually hit some of these bonuses without really having to really change anything, and you might just get extra stats, extra damage reduction, which is an overall welcome change. Now, let's get into the class changes here, starting off with the Barbarian. So again, nothing got nerfed, which is a huge surprise. I expected maybe Bash or Heartseeker to be changed, but nothing got changed here. So Whirlwind, more damage on this. Whirlwind, another bonus damage got increased. It's a small one, but if you start increasing the base damage and then increase any of the other multipliers, this adds up. Call of the Ancients, I'm going to be honest, I don't think these were good. I even mentioned this was like a bait item. There's no new Call of the Ancients pet Barbarian build. Unless they said Call of the Ancients lasts forever, skip it. Frenzy, I don't see anyone playing Frenzy. And Flay, though, was actually seeing some play with some sort of bleed variant, and it's going to be even better. And Enhanced Flay, the vulnerable duration got increased. The Battle Flay, the bleed damage bonus got increased. So we have an increase here and here. And then Combat Flay, the maximum stack amount got increased, damage reduction increased, as well as getting the buff duration increase. So overall, Flay is probably going to be another build that a lot of people may be interested in. Then with the passives, we have this ability to make enemies vulnerable, but it's kind of whatever for the most part. And then they also have this change right here where the mastery skills have a chance to do it now too. But again, I feel like this is a kind of too low. A lot of people are just either running the Accursed Touch or something else, just like a mod on the ring to have a chance for vulnerable. Then there's Toughest Nails, additional Thorns as bleeding damage got increased, and Thorns was already pretty good. So again, there's just crazy buffs here. Walking arsenal damage per unique source got increased by another 2%. I don't see this really seeing any play, but we'll have to wait and see if people actually try to run this. Legendary aspects, tempering blows, so the weapon swaps to activate are reduced. The slacking aspect, lucky hit, you have a 45 to 60% chance to gain 20 free when Ren deals direct damage. And then now it's the same amount, but skills direct that deal direct damage to at least one bleeding enemy, your maximum fury is increased by 5 to 20. So if you're running something that would increase your resource based off of damage, that could be nice. And then Dust Devil's aspect, Whirlwind Dust Devil's damage got increased by 100%. This is really nice. That makes Whirlwind a lot more viable, not only for Dust Devils, but on the base of the damage itself. And then we have the aspect of Relentless Armster. So we previously had some sort of increased fury generation. And then on top of that, there's a 15% reduced fury cost to activate your skills while all bonuses are activated. And then Gore's Devastating Grips. We have Whirlwind here. The explosion damage got increased over here by a little bit, so we got up to 15 on the higher end. And then Ancient's Oath, that damage got increased, but it's like so small. I don't see it being like a brand new way to play with that. So that's going to be the Barbarian changes, and I have some like notes over here. So overall, what are the biggest things to take away from the Barbarian? If you're interested in maybe building another build, I would look at maybe either some sort of Whirlwind variant with materials, or just Whirlwind in general. Everything else is just small little buffs here and there. As far as Druid goes, the Gift of the Stag, so these are all the Spirit Boons, just basically doubled. Thorns got doubled over here. And then with the Advantageous Beast, they made it so they reduced the duration of impaired effects. And then now you gain 50% movement speed and impairment reduction. That is awesome. You just get free 15% movement with getting that one now. Because a lot of them, there was like ones that you would always get. And now there's maybe a little bit more up for contention here. Now with Scythe Talons, they doubled the crit. With the Iron Feather, the maximum life got increased by another 6%. We got another 5% attack speed, extra spirit restored by another like 50% of what it used to be. And then Bolster over here, Fortify, increase from 15 to 25, and the Obsidian Slam. Kills required for the guaranteed overpower are cut in half. This is a buff. So this is going to be really good for the Pulverized Druid, and that is going to be the money here, guys. And I actually have a build that I'll be dropping very soon that can keep you in ultimate form 100% of the time. So make sure if you guys aren't subbed now and you're a Druid player, you're going to want to see this build. Anyways, Rabies, they increased the damage. Honestly, Rabies is getting so many buffs, and it's still, where I would say, maybe not going to be close to anywhere towards the top. But you know what will be towards the top? 76 base damage increase. I mean, they're just like, here, make Pulverize the best skill. Like, it's definitely going to be one of the top Druid builds, without a doubt. And it was actually already a pretty decent build. It just kind of suffers in the bossing department. But obviously, with all those other buffs stacking up, with a 76, I'm pretty sure, as far as I'm aware of, there's nothing else in this entire patch that gets a 76% damage increase. This is massive. Unless somehow they mess this up and it's like a 7.6. 76 is a very big number. And again, it was already pretty consistent for hitting millions of damage. And now I got a really cool build for you guys. You definitely want to see that. Anyways, Raging Pulverize also got a buff over here. So not only do we get 76 increase, but the enemies overpowered by Pulverize used to be, they would be stunned, right? But now it's going to be Pulverized deals 30x increased overpower damage, and then enemies overpowered are also stunned. So basically what it comes down to is you get 30x increased overpower damage, and Pulverized is a build that there is a lot of little overpower, and they made this cut in half. So you're going to get more consistent Obsidian Slams on the small stuff, but again, the bossing is just one of the areas that makes it difficult. But with my Infinite Ultimate build, you're going to be starting to ramp up damage, and again, I'm not going to be overhyping this build, but it's definitely going to be something that is going to be good. I mean, again, nothing else is getting this buff. You saw the Whirlwind 15% or whatever. 76 is just huge. Anyways, passives. Nature's Free, a chance to trigger free skill. This got actually increased by 5%. It's a small one, but like all of this like matters. And then Perfect Storm, you got a little damage bonus here, and then Nature's Reach, damage to distance enemies, this got increased by a little bit, and then Poisoning amount got increased a little bit here, Quick Shift, a little bit of an increase, and all of these do add up. Again, we're going to be making that 76 go a lot farther, plus the X30 on the overpower. And then with Defensive Posture, they get to increase the amount of fortification that you're going to be gaining. With Mending, you're going to get additional healing. And then while in Werebear, the time to do the overpower, another buff. So everyone used to get this. So every 16 seconds you get an overpower, and now that's a nice little buff over there. So it's a 4-second less duration, which is a nice increase in terms of like its negative requirement. So just think of it as a buff. Every 12 seconds you overpower versus 16. Really good stuff. So again, that's why I'm saying Pulverize is money now. Anyways, legendary aspects. Trampled Earth, so maybe we can do something with like Trample Slide or something again. So Landslide, they increase the damage. It's another X20. Is this going to make it like, it's not a plus 76. Again, it's just too much. A 20% compared to that is just too big. Anyway, Subterranean damage bonus. Aspect of the Alpha, the Werewolf Companion actually got changed over here. So a small little damage boost. Shred damage when cast above. This got a small increase. I've already covered the Shred build. It's one of the best builds in the entire game for speed, but when you compare it to now what we have with Pulverize, just don't bother. If you want to push, think about other builds. But it's still a nice addition, especially with leveling. It's one of the best leveling builds for the Druid, as long as you get some of the aspects. Then with Constricting Tendrils, the damage got increased over here from 120 to 150. That's the one where like you have like a chance, I think it's on nature skills, to actually poison. Now, if you guys didn't know why people were running this, because I got asked all the time, why are you playing this? Your build doesn't scale poison damage. It's because there is a thing called Envenom, and it actually makes it so you can just consistently poison enemies, and it's basically required for Druid to deal real damage. That's why in every single Druid build, Envenom is pretty much like the best in slot as far as the amulet goes. And then on Dominate, the bonus damage after an overpower also got increased. So we have more overpowers, more damage to Pulverize. Again, I know I'm repeating it, but Pulverize, there's too many buffs here to just deny that it is going to be one of the top tier Druid builds. Anyways, Necromancer, they basically updated a bunch of the sacrifices because everyone's playing minions, and, people get bored of minions, so now you might want to consider trying something else out for a little bit more fun. Now, as far as meta goes, well, you get extra 5% crit. A lot of these got doubled, or there's like a 15 to 20% increase here. Shadow damage got increased over here when you sacrifice. Damage to vulnerable, another 5 over here. Just small stuff. But again, all of this starts to add up when you consider how many things that you're getting. Remember, you're going to be able to select 3 different sacrifices. And again, it all adds up. Now, they are also buffing some of the other, there's like blood gets, blood, I think this is the one where you like grab with the blood orbs or something like that. And then there's Blood Drinker, Fortify, some small buffs over here. Overall, I wouldn't say that there's a brand new Necromancer build that's an S tier one that is merged off of this, but again, minor buffs here and there, and then they increase the sacrifice bonus by double. This is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. So if you want to play anything that's not minion related, hey, that's a pretty big bonus over here, especially because this, again, there's so many different things. There's one on the Paragon board, there's now the sacrifice bonus, and it'll start to add up, especially when the base of the bonus is already getting increased, and now we're doubling it with this, right? Or from what it used to be, right? And then this is actually one of the biggest updates that I think is going to be pretty big. So shielding aspect used to make it so you would have a Bone Storm that would gain Barrier equal to your base life. Now it is your maximum life. So this is massive. So if you wanted to build a Necromancer that was ultimate in the tank department, well, you run the Shielding Storm aspect, yeah, you're going to be extra tanky. So that's pretty much it with the Necromancer. As far as my notes for the Necromancer, I wrote down some small caster buffs, but I don't think that, like, let's say going back to Bone Spirit or Bone Spear or, like, Blood Surge, these are going to be good. There's actually a buff that I was really hoping that we would get, and it comes down to the minions, and when you would activate the Blood Surge to cast twice, there was, like, a thing where it would give you basically overpower after every like 5 or 6 or something. Now, a lot of those don't work off of it. Is that a bug? Is that intended? I don't know. But at the end of the day, if they actually change that, well, then you'd be getting overpower. You basically could overpower on every single hit. Then we're looking at money. But now it's, I would say, still not going to be on the same level as minions. But minions are taking another... Actually, even though I mentioned nothing's really getting nerfed, technically it's a bug fix to the Holy Bolt Elixir, which we'll talk about. But anyways, next up, Rogue over here. So, Twisting Blades. Damage increase, so initial damage by 20%, the return damage by 20%, so double 20% bonuses here. Now, with Flurry, they also increased the damage by 25%. I was talking about that. I even said they hinted towards a Flurry buff, and it's not just this. If this was it, I'd be like, okay, don't even bother, guys. But there is some other changes to Flurry. So, we have passives over here. The Exposure, Lucky Hit no longer requires direct damage to proc, and also works on damage over time effects. That's pretty good. And then Sturdy, we get some extra damage reduction for Rogue, so basically 6% extra damage reduction, because everyone got this anyways. Mending Obscurity, while you're stealth, now you just get to heal it while entering, and it's a little bit of a buff here, so that's cool. And then non-basic, non-core got increased by 10%, and then Fluidity. This one is actually going to be potentially pretty meta, and the reason why is if you played Rogue, you've probably noticed there's a lot of stuff that requires you to do some sort of crowd control or some sort of condition needs to be met, and this will be really good because there is a passive on the Paragon board that gives you like damage based off of crowd control and stuff, and it's just not up against bosses, and you have to have multiple things affected by it. So you may see a lot of builds actually run Fluidity. So keep in mind, this patch is not out yet, so start leveling up some of your glyphs. This is one I can recommend for pretty much every single build, as most builds will have some sort of agility, and it doesn't even have to hit the target, which is excellent, so you can just use mobility, boom, you got extra increased damage. The energy regen could be good for some builds, but it's basically just this. It's like it's just 10x. It's like free up at almost all times. And then now with the explosive glyph, we also got a damage reduction. This is for the stun grenades. So the stun grenades, I dropped a build video on it. I'll link it down below, although it's going to be needing probably an update to the build, but at least you'll have something for now. But basically, this build was so underperforming with specifically all of the stun grenades, and it is getting a bunch of buffs here. So this is a nice little change over here. And then with Blade Dancer's aspect, this is actually pretty crazy. So I wrote down some notes over here. So it says from 30 to 60. Now, as far as I'm aware of, this is like two-handed. But if they're considering this like on the one hand, and they're changing this on the one-handed, this is crazy. But what this would mean if on the higher end, because remember the twisting blades spin around twice, that's basically proccing 2 different times, which is actually going to add up quite a bit. If you consider, okay, you would deal 60% damage times 2, that would be 120. So you go from 120 to 240 in total of the damage. Again, that starts to ramp up, especially if you start adding other things to have other bonuses on it. So I think this could be pretty good. But I actually watched a video recently by Woody, and it was basically mentioning that these apparently don't really have some sort of like lucky hit, like they changed something in the code. It was like a stealth nerf to the way that lucky hit would work on specifically like the returning blades. There's a huge difference on that. Even though we're getting increases with damage, a lot of the lucky hit stuff would not proc properly. So I'm hoping that we get some sort of stealth buff to that department, because even if you increase this, there's like bursting venoms, or if you want to try victimize here with it, unfortunately, unless they're going to stealth buff it with the lucky hit chance when the blades spin around and stuff, it might not be that great for that. But as far as like the base damage, yes, that would be much better. Anyways, next up with the Artful Initiative, the energy required to drop grenades got decreased, so that is buff, and then the damage got increased by 50%, and then damage got increased by 200. Aspect of surprise. So obviously now stun grenades. I mean, I technically mentioned before that I was like saying that there's nothing else in this patch notes that is this big, which was the Pulverized Druid. But technically, with I guess the grenade, it's not like a skill here that counts as a skill that you're activating, but it is something that does factor into the build. So the grenade's damage being increased by another 50, another 200. We're probably looking at something that has a lot of potential here, but we'll have to wait and see kind of how it actually performs, because you can also increase, I think, the flurry size. So technically now, if you can get the increased size and they're getting like so much extra damage with the overlapping, now we're actually looking at something much better. And then when you shadow step, they drop at the location the player teleports to instead of where they teleported from, which is way better for the bosses, because usually you open up with the shadow step to apply additional crit strike chance, which is great. So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty insane here. And with Trickster's aspect, they also increased the grenade damage by another 50%. So in total, what are we getting here? Well, we got an X5, I think, was it? Yeah, so we got X5 over here, and then on top of that, we get another 300%. That is absolutely wild. Shredding time required for a dark shred got reduced. Oh, this doesn't really matter. Now, this is what matters, though. So melee rogues can actually run Umbrus. If you guys have played melee, you probably were like, dude, this absolutely sucks for melee because you can't apply this. So you would have to weave in a, a marksman skill, right? Which is usually puncture in between all of your melee skills. So now you don't have to do it anymore if you don't want to, which is awesome. Now, as far as Arrow Storms go, I haven't really seen any like builds pop off with it, but if any of you guys have some feedback on Arrow Storm, let me know, because they increased the damage by 30% and then another 5% here. So maybe this will be something to kind of look at, but there is also another Arrow Storm here. So and then there's an X5 on top of like, what is it, 60? Okay, so looks like what we're seeing right now. Now, Eyes in the Dark. I don't know why these pants have been so bad for so long. And really what it comes down to is it does... The ultimates in general for Diablo, most of them don't really do any real damage, right? Now, like, it does... Sometimes, in a lot of cases, if you actually check out the damage, it does less damage than basically a core skill when you start putting points into it, because you can't put points into ultimate, and they also remove the ability to get ultimate damage scaling in most cases, other than like the War of Hakan amulet, right? So it makes it so Death Trap now deals 50 to 70x increased damage unless it hits a boss or player, and it would rearm itself until it kills an enemy. It's pretty much garbage, because the idea maybe was to try to like push the highest tier of content, go to, pit 200 and just have this infinite ultimate, and then as long as it kills one, well, then it goes away. But it's like, it's still not viable, let's be honest. Now it deals a little bit more damage and will rearm itself a second time. So you get 2 of them on a 90x. Is that going to now be enough We'll have to wait and see. I really don't think so, though. Like, now what you could consider is running the Scoundrel's Leather. You could throw on the Eyes in the Dark, and maybe you could do something more interesting with it, but it's only for, like, really high-end content because, well, it's just going to have to wait for that thing to build up for, like, Inner Sight. There could be something interesting, so I wouldn't sign it off as completely worthless, as, you know, sometimes people figure out really interesting things. And then on top of that, the Saboteur Signet, the grenade damage got increased by 50%. So, at the end of the day, we got a 50% on top of what, another 50, another 5x, and then what's this, like 350%, which is awesome, because I really wanted to have that build finally be good. Alright, so, overall, as far as Rogue goes, I wrote some side notes over here. So, Andariel's, that was buffed to, it's kind of buffed to Rogue. So, at the end of the day, let's see, Rogue has a lot more to kind of play around with. And wait, where's that rapid fire change? There is another rapid fire change. Let me just go over that since we're just talking about the Rogue right now. It might be, oh, they put it at the bottom for some reason. I just wrote it on the side here. So they fixed an issue with the Scoundrel's Kiss where they couldn't hit close targets. And that's why, if you guys were watching me stream, they're like, dude, why don't you play with the new ring? I have a multiple greater affix ring for rapid fire, and I wasn't using it because I hated if a target was too close, it would just shoot over, right? It's really annoying. So they're going to be able to make it hit, and it increases the explosion radius. So this means faster clear speed. So rapid fire actually got a buff, and it was already pretty good. Now, also, since we're at the bottom here, they also fixed an issue where casting boulders with the Dome and Stone would cause it not to cast at all. I didn't know what that was, but there is another huge change to the Druid actually here. So you can have you can only have 10 now, but that's fine, that's enough, and you get increased by 10% for each boulder. So is that going to make this going to be the new meta build? I even was talking about like landslide and the boulder maybe being potentially good here. And this is actually pretty solid. But again, pulverized 76 increase, 30 increase overpower, and then all these other bonuses. I think I'm going to be more interested in pulverized. Now there is a different change here. This is for specifically any minion build that would get more damage based off of pets like the Druid had with shepherds. This over here now makes it so they don't count as minions. So it's basically a nerf, but most people may not have known about that anyways. But that it still works right now up until the 17th. But we're still not done with Sorceress. Okay, so we just went over the Rogue, but I had to go back down because that was in my notes. So for the Sorceress, what got changed over here? So the Ice Barrier, this the barrier amount got increased by 5%. Shimmering Teleport duration got increased. And then Incinerate damage reduction got increased. So all buffs for you. Potent warding over here, so they're making it so that maximum resistance got increased, so that's kind of cool. Especially if you want to combo it with Tyraels, now you're going to be insanely tanky, which is awesome. And it's this adjusted functionality no longer excludes basic skill casts, so that's cool. Now Glass Cannon, we have additional damage taken got reduced, so you used to take 9x damage, now you only take x6. And then persistence duration got increased from Align the Elements. Movement speed got increased over here. Duration increased for conduction, electrocution. So a little bit more damage there. Warmth. So healing per nearby burning boss got changed to like 1.5 to 6% is actually pretty decent here. So that's going to be nice for recovery on some of the bosses. Inner Flames, the bonus damage while healthy did get increased as well. Overflowing energy cooldown reduction for hitting elites got changed over here. Avalanche, this is something good. So 15x damage for free. That's a welcoming change. Then Combustion, the damage per unique source of burning got increased over here. And then Crit Strike chance got increased with Esu's Ferocity. And then Shatter, the bonus damage got increased as well. So like this was like a pretty meta to run. And then towards the higher end of like the Firebolt Fire Wall build. Then Veers, the bonus damage got increased over here, and the bonus damage after a crit strike got changed over here. Is Veers crit? But anyways, nice little buffs over there. And then Aspect of Concentration over here. So damage reduction got buffed. And then Unbroken Tether. Chain Lightning got increased here. But is Chain Lightning going to be good? I don't think so, just with this buff. Chance to cast additional shock skill got increased over here with Overwhelming Currents. Mage Lord. So Veer's Mastery gives you damage reduction. And Veer's Mastery grants damage reduction. Oh, this is why I was thinking like Veer's Mastery over here. Because I was like, I thought it was damage reduction over here. Why is it getting crit? But this thing over here just gives you extra damage reduction. Tripled while fighting a close enemy. Oh, okay. So that's pretty cool. So this really helps out against bosses. You can stay in melee range, and then you just have 27%. Okay, cool. And then Shattered Stars. Meteorites getting increased by another 10x. Is that really enough? Probably not. Frozen Memories, additional casts got changed over here, and then Battlecaster's Aspect, maximum stats got increased from 3 to 5. And then Flame Scar, the Ember's damage got increased, but there's an extra bigger buff with this that needs to happen. So it's not considered a direct damage or damage over time. So I don't know what it's considered in the game, but as far as I can tell, when I was testing this out, because I wanted to try to make an Ember build, which is little things that shoot out. It's the unique item. I don't know if this is going to make it super, super strong or anything, but Esdor's Overflowing Cameo over here, I would say, I believe this is it's either the Crackling Energy or like the Nova here. With that one. I don't know if this is going to make a huge difference, though. Endless Rage, I would say not usable. This is a small buff, and I've actually really liked the Bouncy Fireball build. And while we do have a buff here, and a couple little buffs just in general with the Sorceress, sure. But I don't see any brand new build emerging out of it. It is a nice change that we're getting all these small buffs, but I would really like to have seen, like, Ball Lightning maybe make a return, or Fireball just becoming way better. And again, we do have, like, that additional, like, 10%, you know, we get a 10% crit here, and there's another... I think there's another like crit change in here for Fireball. So maybe Fireball could be kind of something to maybe look at for fun. But again, I don't see it being like, oh, now this is the best new build. But overall, lots of nice changes over here. In addition to everything, this is all other class buffs here. So health and damage have been reduced in the pit for the monsters. The adjustments most significant as players approach tier 60. So basically, now it's going to be easier to do the pit. So I don't know if now we're going to be able to do pit 200, but we'll have to wait and see. And all the torment bosses lost 30% HP. This is a massive, easy change, and it includes the blood boils for Lilith. So if you're having trouble with Lilith, because I'd always have people asking, hey, dude, can you help me beat Lilith? And I would just suggest to watch a guide for it, because you just have to learn the mechanics. And now, is there going to be any way to like one-shot her? To be honest, I have seen a Thorns Necromancer basically one-shot Lilith, but other than that, I don't know if there's any instant one-shot. You could probably look at some sort of like dot rogue with like a Darius or like a bleed build. That's kind of probably what I would suggest as far as like the easiest ways to actually kill the tormented bosses, but it's going to be a lot easier now, so maybe just wait and try. And then they're nerfing Holy Bolts, so they don't scale off of the monster's level, but now they scale off of I think like your player's damage over here. Yeah, it's something about this. Where does it say? It's your weapon's damage, so that's how it scales off of now. So anyways, I know it was a long video, but that is everything, and we're going to be talking a little bit more very soon about what are going to be the brand new builds that emerge. Hint, it's probably going to be Pulverized Druid. Out of all of them, Pulverized Druid and the Rogue Stun Grenade build received the highest numerical stat changes in the game. But yeah, lots of awesome stuff. So if you guys are new here and do want to see the follow-up video to go over like kind of the new meta potentially, subscribe to the bell and you'll see it very soon. But take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.